Randi Green here, and welcome to our Whole Future podcast. A little bit of an update on where we are now. We are on September 26th, and it's technically an 886 day. So there are a little bit of choices to be made. With the original principles is principle 8, the correct use of energy, and going with the quick descending of our sun in the northern hemisphere. As it begins to peak up and create summertime in the southern hemisphere, we are in the northern hemisphere approaching wintertime. With that, of course, the sun will have a different angle on the sky. And we have had some pretty severe solar emissions that has rung through the Earth's magnetic field for a couple of days and amplified a lot of old energies. And with that, some of the old holographic energetic planetary network settings. For when this happens, it also, we could say in a way, it is an activation. It is an activation to clean up, and then whatever's left can either be dismissed or integrated. And with that, also all species that used to be here as part of the older layers, the older sediments of our planet. There are layers deep down in the planetary construction that science, of course, can dig down and see old bones of old creatures that used to exist there. Not knowing that, yes, the physical component might have been removed and is no longer on the surface of our planet, but the energetic alternate realities are still there. That's part of the other realms. And old groups are leaving due to the shedding of the energies of the sun. The sun is shedding off its old shields and fields. The fields are technically the ones that are connected to density 3. The shields are the ones that are connected to density 2. And we are now going into the terrestrial realm, or the outer domain, or density 1 reconfiguration of our sun. And the first one that hits there is the pillar 1-7. For those of you who are unfamiliar with that, I suggest you either look at the whole philosophy book, where you can then get some ideas of what the Pillar Project is about and how it was turned into the restoration program, or you can do the transition science courses and the perception logs where I explain this, link below to this material. So with that background already in place in the course material, what I want to move on here is the update further into what does that mean? What does it mean that we're now entering the 1-7 pillar? Aside from different old group of other realm and other worldly races that are pulling out and leaving, which is interesting. And we recall that some of these groups, they used to be humanoids that used to be humans at some point in time, very, very long ago before the timeline event. However, their genetics and consciousness potentials and their holographic energetic configuration began to deteriorate, and with that created anomalies and what we call physical expressions that we have encountered many times over the course of human history, either from shamans or from people that were the storytellers that were connected to what science called mythology, expressing and explaining some of the other realms that are connected to our world. So with that understanding, we also know that these are not mythological creatures. They have been seen and felt and experienced by many different peoples. It has been told as stories around the bonfire, and it has been shared as students of the medicine man or medicine woman. It has been shared from shaman to shaman as part of the world for those of us who are operating in the other realms and learning what that means and actually what our true obligations are with these different groups that are existing there. And when I say obligations, it depends on what type of original lineage we had and whether or not these remnants of original lineages of the humanoid branch under the 3 different groups that were already, what we could say, had genetic anomalies when they entered into this universal cycle. These are typically the ones that were the first group of what we understand as humanoids, and these are the ones that deteriorated to a larger degree when the timeline event hit our solar system or our universal structure, and then our solar system. So we are very, very far back in history. That means that when the DE1 or the density 1 outer domain reconfiguration of a sun, when the layers of the sun are being hit with that, and I have called it fields for the density 3 and shields for density 2, and deliberately done so because the density 2 shields were technically added to our sun artificially and were not there to begin with. Density 3 was there as part of the original configuration, but altered after the timeline event, and by that had to be re-engineered so that it would not emit what we would call the dark light configuration. And with that also understanding that our sun has different variations in each and one of these domains, where we, for those of us who have the sight, have seen the sun looking differently, all depending on what level of its configuration we are viewing it from. If we're viewing it from the density 3, well, then it will appear differently than it does in density 2, as well as it does in density 1. In density 1, it's a cold sun, it's a blue-white sun, and we are getting there. And that was how it was back on our planetary settings a very long time ago. I talked a little bit about that in the podcast series, Building Better Futures, Building Bridges for Better Futures, where we are also going into the past of some of the things that are happening here and some of the leaving of the groups, and by that the giving over, which gives us more information of the true planetary history. And that's technically all it is. So what can we use history for? Well, it's frames of reference. It's what we could say context for our broader understanding of who and what we are and what we are capable of. History tells us technically who and what we are. And in that manner, what we could say, what turns us into a better version of a human is that what we do with that information, how we're going to use that information. So that's part of it, and that's why I am the podcast series Building Bridges to Better Futures are the last branch of the work that I am putting in motion, so that that information is there, so people have frames of references as well as connection points to what does this work actually mean and what are we supposed to do. A huge portion of that is the understanding of the changes of our reality field, both planetary-wise as well as solar, as well as universal. So these are some of the 3 layers that are connected to our biofield, our emotional field, our mental field. Once we learn to remove what has been inserted and have prohibited us from accessing the true realities and the other realms that are connected to our planet, solar system, and universal quadrant, as well as what we have access to via our higher order energy system and our activated higher order senses. For me, when I now feel the difference, as in today, as I said, is September 26th, and we are having a warm summer day here in Denmark, which is completely unusual. The Danish Meteorological Institute are already calculating that we are having the warmest September in history. So of course, we are in the mix of a different approach to reality. Yesterday or 2 days before, we had a huge impact of geomagnetic storm from the emission of the sun that rung through the magnetic field and produced red auroras, which is rare. The matter of the fact of that one is important is in the whole counseling or the higher order awareness YouTube channel. I have posted a little podcast or a little video where I talk about the changes in the sun and some of the different spectral layers of the sun and how they affect our cells. And the red light spectrum affects some very old levels of our molecules. Point being, when I today was opening my door and sensing, aside from the crisscrossing on the sky, which has been heavy the last 5 days, I felt nauseous when I was looking at the sun. the sun in my mind was, this is nice, but my body responded in a different way. And then I looked into what is it, why does my stomach area gives off this nauseating feeling, and what kind of information does that tie into? And the answer was, on a molecular level, the 1,7 pillar, or the density 1 configuration of the sun that is now being recalibrated, stirs up some very old layers of our planet. And that correlates with some of the humanoids, some of the groups I've seen that are now taking off, that have for a very long time ago existed on our planet on the surface level on different projects to undo the effects of the timeline event. And some of their configurations have produced the foundation of some of the components of the human DNA, typically referred to as within the lunar scheme. But these are not lunars at all. They used to be old solar races. So this is an interesting configuration of the molecular state to observe how that deep level of my molecules and my atomic structure behind my cells are connected to the neutron field, because the pillar 1,7 is connected to the neutron field. The pillar 2,8 is technically connected to the solar field as it should be to begin with, and the electron is connected to the 3,9 pillar, again re-engineered in to match the 3 lower fields as we know of it. So as the sun is changing its configuration into the planetary setting, so the outer domain as we know of it, then we are working within biology. The fields are connected, that's the density 3 is technically connected to the mind field, and the shields are technically connected to the emotional field that once the guardian of the threshold has been acknowledged and worked with, and it has chosen to leave, that's technically a technologically engineered genetic piece of technology, an energetic entity that's connected to different types of cube technology that ties us into specific realms of the artificial fourth dimension as part of the colonizing factions. Once that has been released, and what it has created in our fields for centuries, clearing that work out, we bridge into the past life where we clear out what has happened on that level of our emotional field in past lives, and onward and so forth until we reach the chiasm and can begin to clear the distortion of our higher order energy system on the vibrational level. That's connected to the sun. So that should give us an opportunity to begin to work with these layers of our fields, unless, of course, they were so tied into the shedding off of the energies from the sun on the density 2 level that whatever was left in us on that level has now been dismantled along with the energies of the sun. Because when things are activated as part of the new grand cycle that are coming in, and is not caught and cleared and either integrated, then it will cease to exist. It will go into evaporation. It will be pulled into the abyss, as the natural dynamics are in the cycles that we are in, where whatever used to be here has reached its limits, has reached its end cycle, and are now getting ready to lift up and elevate into new configurations from where the original cycles of progression and evolution can continue. So we are here in that understanding that the next level of the work that we are to do, those of us who are working with the activation and cleanup processes following the dynamics of the sun, as well as the planetary core connected to the different reconfigurations attempts, the push and pull from the different density 3 races that are present here as well. We are now entering into the biological level. And that's what I felt with my stomach area for a long period of time. We have had the effects of the stomach area and the whole metabolic system connected to the shields of the sun, whereas the neural network is still highly controlled by the frequency fence and whatever has been put up in the ionosphere that are controlled by what we could call present day type of technology, including AI cubes and other secret for most already operating functional quantum computers that are tied into different forms of what we call high collision colliders that similar to the Hadron Collider and other similar types of I'm looking for words here because I get the words in my head, but I'm not sure they are correct. So I'm thinking, is this the correct words for that one? But we know how the Hadron Collider works, and that is connected to a specific group of quantum computers that can then calculate the different layers of the new types of subparticles, 6-layer subparticles that they had discovered we have, and by that beginning to lay out a new quantum field network that will protect, quote unquote, our planet from the now collapsing artificial fourth dimension that the old quantum field were connected to. So we are in the reconfiguration of that as well. That will, of course, affect the human biology in different ways. And we, those of us who are doing the reconfiguration work and the transition processes, we will those of us who have got our original holographic energetic teaching system activated, we will get the information from within. Others will get it from the programs they're under, and others will again either get it in dream state or in meditation and contemplation. But beware, there is still a lot of distortion going on. There's still a lot of energetic parasites that are surfacing now connected to the biology. And as they activate and begin to give off their information, which are technically what we call holographic energetic configurations and code systems, that will affect certain types of biological neuroreceptors as well as electrochemical components in our physicality, and the work with the body and the basic 4D energy work, as well as the other types of reconfiguration clearing work, is then what we must focus on and pay more attention to in regards to both our emotional field but also our biological field, and understanding that we are now going into the clearing work of the neutron level of our biology, which they are trying to link up to a new type of quantum fields that are incorporated in many of the new sciences that are working across the globe in different communities to try and teach people to operate with these new type of quantum potentials and quantum dynamics. This is, of course, part of the rolling out of AI across the board, along with new types of quantum computers and new types of technologies that we will see come into the mix of the base program within the next 5 years, that will be able to work with the quantum potentials of the new quantum field and not the old one that were discovered in the beginning of the 20th century from, for instance, Paul Dirac and Einstein and others that were working with it at the time. So this is the new next level of the base program sciences, along with the UAPs and the different. It's not only now the unknown or the unidentified aerial phenomenon. Now it's also anomalous phenomenon, meaning that it's both subterranean, sub-oceanic, transmedium, in the sky, in the space, at whatever level that they are coming up with. So that is on the move as well, where the different forms of explanations will, for now, are still part of the old paradigm, where it most is declassified, and then it is put out as, yeah, we know what that is, and only a few is the unknowns. Later on, it will be more known that there are more unknowns as we get smarter and get more understanding of how these different anomalous phenomena are operating. Anyways, that's piece of work for science, and I have given some of my explanations on that in my material that is also out on this channel as part of the new reality for humanity, the new reality for Earth, and the new reality for sciences. So all in all, things are moving in what we could say new directions, and we have got lots to learn. There's a lot of things for us to upgrade and activate and clear out and figure out what to integrate and what to not integrate. The biggest challenge for us is discernment of what is important and what is not important in the correct use of energy, and as well the correct use of consciousness, and how we are to operate with the changes in the sun, our planet, and our quadrant, what it does and how it affects our biology and our emotional field and our mental fields, and how we can align the clearing work with our higher order energy system and whatever's left of it, because that's also to be taken into consideration, as many of the new grand cycle activation processes ran without our knowledge because we are being delayed and we're not giving access to these levels of our true consciousness potentials. We lost the momentum of these fields, as I said, use it or lose it. So we are in a reconstruction work as well, deliberately made that way so that we would not have the full scope of potentials of fully activating while these groups were still here, part of the regressed colonizing species and the old world order, because they still wanted whatever they could squeeze out of the lemon before they gave humanity and those of us who are part of the original solar system nations the potentiality, and the solar system civilizations, the original ones, the potentialities of actually activating and recalibrating and begin to work with our solar systems as we were supposed to. And I say solar systems in plural because this is just one version of the many different versions that it has had. So with that little piece of update, until next time, take care. Just a piece of information. Travel plans are in the making again for me. That means that new information will also be given. Some of the things that have been blocked and locked down as potentialities and possible ways of working for me has been opened up back up again. So for those of you who are doing my material, I've had people asking, is it okay now to share the information? And I know years ago when we were in the deep end, I said that this was for people who found it themselves to avoid too much distortion. But I feel things are changing, and the latest amount of work that I have done is for what we could say spread out over many different groups. So if you feel the need to share, and if you feel the need to discuss this with your peers, or however you want to do it, well, then the work I'm doing now is just as generic as everybody else that's doing this. We are so many that are working now to catch up and figure out what we are to do with the knowledge we have. What are the solutions? What are the challenges? What do we need to do as a joint humanity? And with that, of course, if it is of use for you to share my information and what I am coming, my angle of information, then throw it into the mix like everybody else is doing right now. And also be observant of, I have noticed due to AI, and due to the new tools that humans have got via AI and the automated different types of computeral programs that now produce a lot of information, a lot of movies, a lot of videos, a lot of text material, a lot of websites. On websites, you can have the AI now literally telling you what to write. There are full text, full white papers. There's so much that's going to come now that is written by AI. And it's up to us to discern, is this a human or is this actually from AI? And the GTP bots are getting very, very, very skilled. As I said, they are connected to the new quantum fields. They are connected to a new generation of quantum computers, and they are connected to what we could call otherworldly types of technology that are now being implemented via these human quantum computers and in-base program types of AI and technological wonders that are being implemented. So that means that those of us who are accustomed to look up things on the internet, we must be extra aware. Things are changing. It's not just given that what you get is made from a human. It could be made for other purposes. So that demands more of our skill sets and our ability to discern whether or not this is information that is useful for us or is put there to put us into a new merry-go-round of information that at some degree, of course, can be interesting, but at the end of the day, it's just another stalling game. It's just another game of throwing us off with snippets and pieces of the truth and a lot of things that are not really in alignment with what we should know at this point in time. So it all comes down to different forms of deception that is going on the outer reality level, as well as different types of throwing off on the inner levels of our inner knowledge base and what we could and should at this point in time be able to have access to. A lot of discernment, a lot of knowledge, and a lot of trial and error, as well as moving one step forward and sometimes a lot of steps backwards. And it all comes down to our ability to keep going, keep up the momentum, and doing the very best we can. Be patient with ourselves, take care of yourself, learn self-healing, self-nurturing. These are the most important pieces of the clearing work and the integration work. And at the same time, also learn to keep going, keep pushing yourself, keep learning more, not just from outer sources, but mostly and most importantly from your own holographic energy system. So you learn to self-repair, self-heal, and follow the original guidelines of the holographic energetic dynamics and mechanics of our solar system, as well as our planetary outer domain configuration, and what we need to learn to be able to master that as the next piece of our journey inside this solar system. Thank you.